The great chamber of Concordia Prime buzzed with voices from 100 different worlds. Ambassador Min Soo-jin sat quietly in her chair, watching the alien delegates argue about humanity once again. She had heard these same complaints for months now. The humans were too bold. The humans moved too fast. The humans treated everyone as equals, when they should know their place. Captain Park Ji-won shifted beside her, his military uniform crisp, despite the long session. He kept his face blank, but Min could see the tension in his jaw. They both knew this meeting would be different from the others. Counselor Zethkara of the Velthari stood at the center platform, her blue-scaled skin gleaming under the chamber lights. Her voice carried the authority of a species that had ruled star systems when humans still lived in caves. "The human problem grows worse each day," Zethkara announced. "They expand into sectors without proper approval. They ignore established mining rights. They treat primitive species as if they were equals to the great races of this galaxy." Resev. Zethkara. Zethkara. Murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. The crystalline Shektar representative chimed in, musical tones of annoyance. The gas-dwelling Nephali spoke through their translation devices about contaminated space lanes. Min had heard it all before. She waited, hands folded in her lap, as speaker after speaker rose to complain about humanity. The humans helped too much. The humans asked too few questions. The humans acted like they belonged among the stars. Finally, High Arbiter Ulmoth called for order. The ancient Quethani had seen the rise and fall of dozen civilizations. His voice carried the weight of millennia when he spoke. "Ambassador Min," Ulmoth said, "the Council would hear humanity's response to these concerns." Min stood slowly. She was small compared to most of the beings in the chamber, but her voice carried clearly when she spoke. "We have tried to be good neighbors," she began. "When the plague struck Velthari colonies, our doctors went to help. When ships were lost in the Maelstrom Nebula, our rescue teams searched for survivors. When worlds faced famine, we shared our farming knowledge freely." "Insignificant gestures," Zethkara interrupted. "Any advanced species could provide such basic aid." "Then why didn't they?" Captain Park asked quietly, earning sharp looks from around the chamber. Min placed a gentle hand on his arm. "We have always believed that strength comes from helping others, not controlling them. We have tried to learn from your wisdom while sharing what little we know." "What little you know," Ulmoth repeated. "Yes, that is the heart of the matter. Humanity is young. You have been among the stars for barely 2 centuries. You lack the experience to make proper decisions about galactic affairs." More murmurs of agreement. The pattern was always the same. No matter what humans did, it was wrong, because they were too young, too primitive, too different. "The Council has reached a decision," Ulmoth continued. "Humanity will be placed under protective guidance. You will become a client species of this Council. All major decisions regarding your activities outside human space must be approved by your appointed supervisors." The chamber erupted in satisfied sounds from most species. Finally, the upstart humans would learn their proper place. They would serve the great races as junior partners, grateful for the guidance of their betters. Min felt something cold settle in her chest. She had feared this moment for months, but hearing it made real was different. Around the galaxy, human ships were saving lives. Human doctors were healing the sick. Human farmers were feeding the hungry. All of that would now require permission from beings who thought humanity was too primitive to matter. "You understand what this means?" she asked quietly. "Of course," Zethkara said with satisfaction. "It means you will finally receive proper guidance from species who know better. You should be grateful." Captain Park leaned close to Min's ear. "The fleet is ready," he whispered urgently. "Just say the word, and we show them what human strength really looks like." Min shook her head. Violence would only prove their point. It would confirm every stereotype about young, aggressive species who solved problems with weapons instead of wisdom. She looked around the chamber one more time. At the Velthari, who thought humans were useful servants. At the Shektar, who saw them as crude miners. At the Nefali, who complained about human ships in space lanes that humans had helped make safe. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had built wonders among the stars. They had knowledge that humanity was only beginning to understand. But in all their wisdom, they had never learned the most important lesson humanity knew. Nobody could force someone to care. Min gathered her papers with steady hands. She stood and looked directly at High Arbiter Ulmoth. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. Then we choose to walk away. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant hum of the station's systems seemed to pause. What did she say? Zethkara demanded. I said we choose to walk away, Min repeated. You have decided that humans are too primitive to make our own choices. Very well, we accept your judgment. We will return to human space and await your guidance on how we should live our lives. Captain Park stood beside her, his face carefully blank. The other human delegates rose as well, gathering their materials in perfect silence. You cannot simply leave, Ulmoth protested. You have responsibilities, treaties, agreements. As a client species, we can only act with proper supervision, Min replied. Since you have provided no supervisors, we cannot act at all. We will wait in human space for your instructions. The aliens watched in confusion as the human delegation filed out of the chamber. There were no threats, no angry speeches, no dramatic gestures. The humans simply left. As the chamber doors closed behind them, Zethkara turned to Ulmoth with a puzzled expression. Is that it? They just give up? Ulmoth was older and wiser than most. He had seen species rise and fall. Something about the human response troubled him, but he could not say what. Perhaps, he said slowly. We shall see. Behind the closed doors, the chamber erupted in satisfied discussion. Finally, the human problem was solved. The upstart species had learned their place. The galaxy could return to proper order. None of them realized they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. None of them understood that sometimes the most dangerous response to an insult is not anger, but silence. The humans had walked away. Soon, the galaxy would learn what that really meant. Dr. Lee Hayoung finished checking the last patient file on Mercy Station. The Velthari colony ship floated in space around them, filled with sick aliens who had been fighting the Red Death plague for months. Human medical teams had worked day and night to find treatments that would work with Velthari biology. They had been making progress. The death rate was dropping. Families were being reunited. Hope was returning to the colony ship. Now she had to pack everything and leave. Doctor, please. The Velthari medical officer pleaded. We are so close to a cure. Just a few more days. Lee sealed the last of her research data into secure containers. I'm sorry. The Galactic Council has decided that humans need proper guidance for all activities outside our space. Since they have not provided guidance for medical aid, we cannot continue. But people are dying. Then you should ask the Council for guidance. Lee replied gently. We are too primitive to make these decisions ourselves. The Velthari officer stared at her. You cannot be serious. You're abandoning us because of politics? We're following the Council's decision, Lee corrected. If humans are too young and inexperienced to act without supervision, then we should not act without supervision. The Council knows best. 3 star systems away, Commander Kim Tae-hyun powered down the rescue beacon on his ship. The Maelstrom Nebula stretched around them, a beautiful and deadly storm of gas and energy that swallowed ships whole. For 50 years, human rescue vessels had patrolled these lanes, pulling survivors from the chaos when other ships couldn't navigate the constantly shifting currents. His communication officer looked up with confusion. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from the inner nebula. A Shektar mining vessel is trapped. Log the calls and transmit them to Concordia Prime," Kim ordered. "We are a client species now. We need proper authorization before we can rescue anyone." "But sir, they'll be dead by the time authorization comes through." Kim's jaw tightened. Then the council should have thought of that before they decided we needed supervision. The human ships pulled back to the edge of the nebula. Behind them, the Shektar vessel's distress calls grew weaker as its power failed. On the agricultural world of Kepler 442b, human farming advisors packed their equipment while alien farmers watched in growing panic. The humans had spent 3 years teaching new growing techniques, introducing crops that could survive the harsh soil, showing the colonists how to work together instead of competing for resources. The harvest was only half complete. Without human guidance, the colonists faced starvation before the next growing season. "You can't leave now," the colony leader begged. "The growing season will be lost. My people will die." The human agricultural team leader, Dr. Chen Ming Dao, felt his heart break. He had watched these people struggle for years. He had celebrated with them when the first crop succeeded. Now he had to walk away from everything they had built together. "The council has determined that humans are not qualified to make agricultural decisions without supervision," he said formally. "We await their guidance on how to proceed." "This is madness." "This is the council's decision," Chen replied. "If you disagree, you should speak with them." The same scene played out across the galaxy. Human teachers closed schools. Human engineers abandoned construction projects. Human merchants honored existing contracts, but made no new ones. Human patrol ships returned to human space, leaving dangerous sectors unguarded. At first, many alien species were pleased. The arrogant humans were finally showing proper respect. They were learning their place in the galactic order. But as days passed, the silence became unsettling. Trade routes that had been safe for decades suddenly became dangerous without human patrols. Medical research stations fell silent without human scientists. Agricultural worlds faced crop failures without human advisors. The Velthari tried to continue the plague research themselves, but they lacked the human ability to think outside traditional approaches. The Shektar mining vessel was eventually rescued by their own ships, but only after 3 crew members died in the delay. Most disturbing of all, when alien delegations arrived at the borders of human space to demand explanations, they found the humans were thriving. Human colonies that had been small outposts were expanding rapidly. New ships were being built at unprecedented rates. Technologies that humans had shared freely were being developed in new directions that no one else had considered. Ambassador Vektal of the Neutral Trading Guild visited human space and was amazed by what he found. The Sol system buzzed with activity. New space stations were under construction. Ships came and went in patterns that suggested exploration missions to previously unknown sectors. "You seem to be doing very well," he observed to Admiral Cho Seo-jun during a formal dinner. Cho smiled. "We're finally free to work without constantly being told we're doing everything wrong. It's amazing how much faster you can progress when you're not spending half your time in committee meetings, explaining why your ideas might work. But surely you miss the guidance of the older species?" "What guidance?" Cho asked. "In all the years we worked with the Council, they never taught us anything useful. They just complained about everything we tried to do. Now we can actually focus on exploration and discovery." Vektal was troubled by this response. He had assumed the humans would be struggling without galactic support. Instead, they seemed liberated. Meanwhile, the first formal complaints reached the Galactic Council. The Velthari demanded that humans be forced to resume medical aid. The Nephali complained that space lanes were becoming dangerous without human patrols. The Shektar wanted human mining expertise back. High Arbiter Ulmoth found himself in an impossible position. The Council had declared humans to be a client species, requiring guidance for all major decisions. But they had provided no guidance. Legally, the humans were correct to wait for instructions. Counselor Zethkara was furious. Force them to resume their activities. How? Ulmoth asked. They are following our decision exactly. They are waiting for guidance that we have not provided. Then provide guidance. Ulmoth called for the preparation of formal guidance documents. This proved more difficult than expected. The Council had spent decades criticizing human methods without bothering to understand them. Now they discovered they could not write instructions for activities they did not understand. How did humans make their medical treatments work across so many different species? How did they navigate the Maelstrom Nebula when other ships could not? How did they adapt farming techniques to worlds with completely different environments? The more the Council tried to formalize human activities, the more they realized how little they actually understood about what humans did. And still the humans waited in silence, growing stronger while the galaxy slowly began to fall apart without them. The Great Experiment was beginning to show its true costs, and the Galactic Council was starting to understand that they might have made a terrible mistake. 3 weeks after humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs, the consequences were spreading like cracks in glass. What had started as isolated incidents was becoming a systematic collapse of services that everyone had taken for granted. The Nephali discovered the problem first. Their gas-dwelling species had complained loudest about human fusion drives, contaminating the space lanes with primitive exhaust. They demanded that humans use cleaner propulsion or stay in their own territory. Now their own ships were breaking down in increasing numbers. Engineer Kefmore floated in his environmental suit, studying the ion buildup on his vessel's hull. The metallic deposits were thick enough to interfere with their energy systems. "How long has this been building up?" he asked his assistant. "The readings suggest months, possibly years," came the reply. "But we never noticed it before because..." Kefmore understood. The human fusion drives, which they had dismissed as primitive, had actually been cleaning the ion deposits from space lanes through their exhaust patterns. The contamination had been maintenance. Without human ships regularly traveling these routes, the ionic buildup was reaching dangerous levels. Nephali vessels, which relied on pure energy rather than crude matter for propulsion, were particularly vulnerable. The Shektar faced a different crisis. Their beautiful crystalline ships were perfect for their homeworld's ordered environment. But asteroid mining required flexibility. They had always considered human mining techniques to be crude and inefficient. Mining supervisor Sil Thanor watched in frustration as another extraction operation failed. The asteroids in the Kepler belt were rich in rare metals, but their chaotic tumbling and irregular composition made them nearly impossible to mine with traditional Shektar methods. "Increase the resonance frequency," he commanded. "Sir, we're already at maximum safe levels," his technician replied. "Any higher, and we risk shattering the asteroid completely." Sil Thanor had watched human miners work these same asteroids with their crude mechanical extractors. The humans didn't try to impose order on chaos. They adapted to each asteroid's unique properties, using flexible techniques that worked with the material instead of forcing it to conform. He had thought them primitive. Now he realized they were practical. The security situation was even worse. Without human patrol ships, pirate activity had increased dramatically. The raid on Valthari Convoy 7 demonstrated just how vulnerable the trade routes had become. Captain Mordeth of the pirate vessel Crimson Fang had avoided human patrol zones for years. Humans had an annoying habit of appearing at exactly the wrong moment, and their ships were too fast and maneuverable to fight effectively. Now the patrol zones were empty. "Sensors show a Velthari trading convoy, sir," his navigator reported. "Perfect. Begin the attack run." The raid was brutally efficient. The Velthari escorts were designed for show rather than combat. Their beautiful ships put up token resistance before surrendering. Within hours, Mordeth's crew had looted enough cargo to fund operations for months. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we're receiving surrender signals from all 3 cargo ships. Mordeth smiled. Accept their surrender. Strip everything valuable and leave them enough life support to reach the nearest station. As the pirates departed, the convoy commander sent desperate messages to nearby patrol ships. The reply came back from empty space. No human vessels were available to pursue. The local alien patrol ships were too slow to catch raiders who struck and disappeared into jump space. Trader Bexatul, one of the few truly neutral observers in galactic space, decided to visit human territory to see what was actually happening. The independent merchant had traded with every species and considered himself a good judge of civilizations. What he found in human space surprised him completely. The Sol system was buzzing with activity, but it was different from the frantic energy he remembered. The humans moved with purpose and confidence he had never seen before. New construction projects were everywhere. Ships departed regularly for unknown destinations. Admiral Cho Seojun received Bexatul with polite hospitality. The human admiral seemed relaxed in a way that Bexatul had never seen from humans before. You seem to be doing well, Bexatul observed over dinner. Better than well, Cho replied. We're free. For the first time in decades, we can explore without someone telling us we're doing it wrong. We can research without having to explain every decision to committee. We can help people without filing permit applications. But surely you miss the benefits of galactic civilization? Cho gestured toward the window, where construction robots worked on a new space station. What benefits? Knowledge they refused to share? Trade agreements that favored established species? Permission to help people only after extensive bureaucratic review? Bexatul was troubled by this perspective, but he could not argue with what he saw. Human space was thriving, while the rest of the galaxy struggled with problems that humans had quietly been solving for years. On Concordia Prime, emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were becoming daily events. Reports flooded in from across galactic civilization. The Red Death Plague was spreading unchecked through Velthari colonies. Mining operations were failing. Trade routes were becoming dangerous. We must force the humans to resume their activities, Councillor Zethkara demanded for the 100th time. High Arbiter Ulmoth studied the legal documents before him. The humans are following our decree exactly. As a client species, they require guidance for all major decisions. We have provided no guidance. Then provide it. We tried. The legal department has been working for weeks to write guidance documents for human medical activities. Do you know what we discovered? The chamber fell silent. We don't understand how they do it, Ulmoth continued. Their medical techniques work across species, barriers that our own doctors consider impossible. Their navigation methods function in environments where our ships cannot operate. Their farming techniques succeed on worlds where our agricultural science says crops cannot grow. The implications were staggering. For decades, the Galactic Council had dismissed human methods as primitive and crude. They had never bothered to understand the principles behind human success because they assumed their own advanced knowledge was superior. Now they realized they had been wrong. Councillor Nalthos of the Ancient Eternal Ones spoke for the first time in months. Her species had guided galactic civilization for millennia, and her words carried enormous weight. Perhaps, she said slowly, we should ask ourselves why a primitive species was able to accomplish things that our advanced civilizations could not. Quote, the chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The suggestion that humans might actually know something worth learning was almost heretical to species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. But outside the chamber, the galaxy continued to deteriorate without human involvement. Each day brought new reports of systems failing, people dying, and problems growing worse. The Galactic Council was beginning to understand that they had not been managing a primitive species. They had been benefiting from a partnership they never recognized, taking credit for solutions they had not provided. And now, in the silence left by humanity's withdrawal, they were finally learning what they had lost. 2 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy faced its greatest crisis in centuries. The ion storm that swept toward Convergence Station was unlike anything in recorded history. The massive trading hub housed 12 million beings from 47 different species, and the storm was going to destroy it completely. Station Commander Yilkresh watched the approaching disaster with growing desperation. The storm stretched across 3 light-years, a writhing mass of charged particles and electromagnetic chaos that would tear apart anything in its path. "Engineering report," he demanded. "The storm will reach us in 18 hours, Chief Engineer Tokmaran replied. "Our shields cannot withstand that level of electromagnetic interference. We need to evacuate the entire station." "How long will evacuation take?" "At least 30 hours, sir. Maybe more if we have problems with the transport coordination." Yilkresh felt cold dread settle in his stomach. They needed 12 more hours than they had. 12 hours that would cost millions of lives. "What about moving the station?" "Impossible, sir. Convergence Station was never designed for mobility. The gravitational anchors alone would take days to disconnect." The aliens tried everything they could think of. Velthari ships with their superior shields attempted to form a protective barrier. But the storm was too massive. Shektar vessels tried to use their crystalline hulls to redirect the electromagnetic energy, but their rigid structures could not adapt to the storm's chaotic patterns. The Nephali offered to evacuate people in their gas-form transports, but their ships moved too slowly to carry everyone to safety in time. The ancient Quethani provided their most advanced technologies, but even their millennia of knowledge could not solve the basic physics of the problem. As the storm grew closer, panic spread through the station. Species that had lived in harmony for decades began fighting over evacuation priorities. Transport ships launched with half-empty cargo bays, while others waited overloaded beyond safety limits. In desperation, High Arbiter Ulmoth sent an emergency transmission to human space. The message was carefully worded to avoid admitting the Council had been wrong, but the urgency was clear. The Galactic Council formally requests human assistance in the Convergence Station crisis. Under emergency protocols, humanity is temporarily permitted to provide aid as directed by Council oversight. Ambassador Liu Weiming received the transmission in her office on Luna Station. She read it twice, then called for Captain Park Ji-won and Admiral Yoon Da-som to join her. "They want us to help," she told them. "About time," Admiral Yoon muttered. "We've been watching this develop for days. The storm is going to kill millions of people. Can we reach them in time?" Park asked. "The fleet is already positioned at the edge of human space," Yoon replied. "We've been tracking the storm since it formed. If we launch now, we can reach Convergence Station 6 hours before impact." Liu studied the formal request again. "There's a problem. They want us to work under Council oversight. That means we have to wait for detailed instructions before we can act." The 3 humans looked at each other in silence. They all understood the situation. The Council was asking for help, while still insisting that humans needed supervision to provide that help. "How long will it take them to provide oversight instructions?" Park asked. "Based on their previous performance? Days, if we're lucky," Liu replied. Admiral Yoon stood up abruptly. "Then we tell them the truth. Human assistance requires human methods. If they want our help, they have to let us do things our way." Liu sent a carefully worded response to the Council. "Humanity appreciates the opportunity to assist. However, the emergency timeline requires immediate action. Human fleet operations cannot wait for detailed oversight instructions. Please confirm authorization for independent action, or provide alternative assistance timeline." The reply came back within minutes. "Council oversight is required for all client species. Actions. Await detailed instructions." Hours passed while beings died on Convergence Station. The alien evacuation efforts were failing. Ships collided in the chaos of uncoordinated rescue attempts. Transport vessels broke down under the stress of overloading. Panic spread through the station as the storm grew closer. Finally, a junior council member named Silvana contacted Liu directly. The young diplomat was supposed to coordinate council oversight of human assistance. But she had been watching people die while the council debated proper procedures. "Ambassador Liu," she said desperately. "Forget the oversight. Just help them. I'll take responsibility for breaking protocol." Liu smiled sadly. "I appreciate the offer, but we can't act on unofficial authorization. If we violate the Council's client species laws, it will create a legal crisis that will make everything worse." "Then what do you need?" "We need our independence restored. Officially. By Council vote." Sylvana stared at her. "That would require an emergency session. A majority vote. Species that spent months arguing that humans needed supervision would have to admit they were wrong." "Yes," Liu said simply. The young diplomat closed the channel and rushed to find High Arbiter Ulmoth. She found him in the council chambers, still debating the proper wording for human oversight instructions, while casualty reports streamed in from Convergence Station. "Sir, the humans won't act without restored independence," she reported. The chamber erupted in angry voices. How dare the humans make demands during a crisis? How could they hold lives hostage for political gain? Number 1. Councillor Zethkara was furious. "This proves they are not ready for independence. They're using a disaster to blackmail the council." But Ulmoth was older and wiser. He had been watching the human response carefully, and he understood something the others missed. "The humans have been ready to help for hours," he said quietly. "Their ships are positioned for immediate response. They're not using this crisis for blackmail. They're showing us the consequences of our own laws." "What do you mean?" "We declared them too primitive to act without oversight. Now, we need them to act immediately, and we cannot provide oversight quickly enough. We created this legal trap ourselves." The death toll on Convergence Station continued to rise. Transport ships exploded under the stress of improper loading. Evacuation centers collapsed under panic. The storm was 6 hours away and closing fast. Finally, Ulmoth made the decision that would change galactic history. "I call for an emergency vote," he announced. "Resolution to restore human independence, effective immediately." The vote was chaotic and bitter. Many species still refused to admit they had been wrong about humanity. But as reports of mounting casualties came in, fear overcame pride. The resolution passed by a single vote. Within minutes of receiving notification, Admiral Yoon launched the largest human fleet in history toward Convergence Station. 300 ships moving in perfect coordination, their crews already briefed on rescue procedures that had been planned for days. The galaxy was about to learn what human competence really looked like when it was allowed to operate without interference. But first, they would have to survive the next 6 hours. The human fleet arrived at Convergence Station like a perfectly coordinated dance. Admiral Yoon Desom watched from her flagship as 300 vessels took their positions around the massive station. The ion storm loomed ahead of them, a wall of destructive energy that filled half the sky. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her communications officer announced. "Begin Operation Sanctuary," Yoon ordered. What happened next left alien observers stunned. The human ships didn't try to fight the storm or shield the station from it. Instead, they began working with it. Captain Lee Kyung-ho commanded the engineering squadron. His ships deployed massive magnetic field generators around the station, but not as shields. They were guidance systems, designed to bend the storm's energy rather than resist it. "Field generators online," he reported. "Beginning electromagnetic redirection sequence." At the same time, Commander Kim Min-jung's evacuation fleet demonstrated coordination that no other species had managed. Human ships docked with the station at dozens of points simultaneously. But they didn't compete for space. Each vessel knew exactly where to go and how many people to take. "Evacuation proceeding on schedule," Kim reported. "We're taking passengers in order of medical need, not species priority." The alien evacuation efforts had broken down because each species tried to save their own people first. Velthari ships refused to take Nephali passengers. Shektar vessels had environmental systems that only worked for crystalline beings. The humans took everyone. Their ships had been designed for multi-species operation from the beginning. Environmental systems adapted automatically to different biological needs. Translation software handled communication barriers. Medical teams were trained to treat dozens of different alien physiologies. Station Commander Yilkresh watched in amazement as order emerged from chaos. The panic that had gripped his station for hours disappeared as human evacuation teams moved through the corridors with calm efficiency. "How are they doing this?" he asked his aide. "They're treating it like a standard rescue operation," came the reply. "Their teams have clearly practiced these procedures many times." That was the first revelation. While other species had focused on perfecting their individual technologies, humans had spent decades preparing for cooperation. Their equipment worked together. Their protocols accounted for different species' needs. Their training emphasized flexibility over rigid procedure. But the real miracle was happening outside the station. Captain Park Young-soo commanded the storm navigation team. His ships were actually flying into the ion storm itself, using their sensors to map its internal structure. "Admiral, we've found the storm's harmonic frequency," he reported. "If we can match it with our field generators, we can create a stable corridor through the center." "How certain are you?" Yoon asked. 80%, ma'am. "But it's our best option for saving the station itself." Other species would have debated the risk for hours. Human commanders made the decision in seconds. "Do it." The magnetic field generators around Convergence Station began pulsing in harmony with the storm's natural rhythm. Instead of fighting the chaotic energy, they guided it into predictable patterns. The storm didn't weaken, but it became manageable. Meanwhile, human rescue ships demonstrated capabilities that alien observers had never imagined. When a Velthari transport broke down in the evacuation zone, human engineers didn't just repair it. They upgraded its systems on the spot, improving its efficiency beyond original specifications. When a group of Shektar children became separated from their families, human psychological specialists didn't just comfort them. They used crystalline resonance therapy, a technique they had learned by studying Shektar culture and adapted for emergency situations. The aliens began to understand that human primitiveness was actually sophistication of a different kind. Where other species had advanced by perfecting single technologies, humans had advanced by learning how everything connected. As the storm reached Convergence Station, the human plan revealed its full scope. The magnetic field generators created a stable corridor through the storm's center. The station's structural systems, reinforced by human engineering teams, channeled the electromagnetic energy safely around inhabited areas. Most amazingly, the humans saved the station itself. Instead of abandoning Convergence Station to the storm, they turned it into a lighthouse. The controlled electromagnetic discharge created a navigation beacon visible across 3 star systems. "Impossible," breathed Counselor Zethkara, watching from her flagship. "The storm should have destroyed everything in its path." "The humans didn't try to destroy the storm," observed High Arbiter Ulmoth. "They made it serve their purpose." When the crisis ended 6 hours later, the final casualty count shocked everyone. Despite facing the worst natural disaster in galactic history, fewer than 1,000 beings had died. The human evacuation had saved 11 million lives. But the real shock came when analysts began studying what humans had accomplished during their 2 months of isolation. Far from struggling without galactic guidance, humanity had made breakthrough discoveries at an unprecedented rate. They had developed new propulsion systems by combining technologies from a dozen different species. They had created medical treatments that worked across biological barriers that other species considered absolute. They had established new colonies using techniques that adapted to local conditions instead of trying to impose standard solutions. Ambassador Min Soo-jin stood before the Galactic Council one more time. The chamber was different now. The arrogant certainty of their previous meeting had been replaced by stunned silence. "You asked why we helped," she said quietly. "After you had insulted us. After you had dismissed our contributions. After you had tried to make us servants instead of partners. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings who had learned hard lessons about the value of cooperation. We helped because that's what we do. We don't help people because they deserve it or because they appreciate it. We help because they need it. That's the difference between commanding respect and earning it. Counselor Zethkara stood slowly. Her pride was wounded, but her honesty was intact. We were wrong. About humans. About what primitive means. About what advanced means. High Arbiter Ulmoth nodded gravely. The Council formally apologizes to humanity. We offer full membership status with recognition of your unique contributions to galactic civilization. Andin, we accept, Min replied. But with conditions. No more client species. No more hierarchies based on age or technology level. We work together as equals. Or we work apart. The new Galactic Accords were signed 3 days later. Humanity took its place not as junior partners or supervised clients, but as full equals in a reformed galactic community. The changes were immediate and profound. Human medical teams returned to plague-stricken worlds. But now, they worked with alien doctors as partners, sharing knowledge in both directions. Human patrol ships resumed their routes, but now they coordinated with alien vessels instead of working alone. Most importantly, the galaxy learned to value contribution over hierarchy. Species were judged not by how old or advanced they were, but by what they could offer to the common good. Ambassador Min stood on the observation deck of Concordia Prime, watching human and alien ships work together to repair storm damage. Captain Park joined her, still amazed by how quickly everything had changed. Do you think they really understand now? He asked. Min smiled. They understand that they needed us. Whether they understand why they needed us, that will take longer. And if they forget again, then we'll walk away again, she said simply. And next time, maybe they'll remember faster. The galaxy had learned its lesson. But Min knew that lessons could be forgotten. The real change was not in laws or treaties, but in understanding. True strength came not from commanding others, but from serving them. Real advancement came not from perfecting isolation, but from mastering cooperation. And sometimes, the most powerful response to disrespect was not anger or revenge, but simply walking away and letting silence speak louder than any threat ever could. The humans had returned to galactic civilization, but they returned as equals, and the galaxy was stronger for it.